In the 1950s, in the town of Victory near the Californian desert, families lead seemingly perfect lives. Husbands leave for work at Victory headquarters, while wives manage the home and take ballet lessons from Shelley. They are forbidden from asking about their husbands' jobs or visiting the headquarters. Among them are Alice and Jack, who enjoy a lively relationship and often host gatherings for friends like Bunny and her husband. Alice hums a favorite tune while doing chores, but when the town experiences tremors, she questions Jack about it, only to be met with silence. One day, after ballet class, Alice and Bunny see men in red jumpsuits helping a new neighbor move and gossip about their friend Margaret, who has become a pariah after a mysterious incident. Later, Alice unexpectedly encounters Margaret in her backyard, lost in a strange vision. Dismissing it, Alice later finds her eggs empty but forgets when her dinner burns. At a pool party, Bunny asks Alice to stop humming her tune, prompting Alice to realize she can no longer remember its name. As the tune lingers in Alice's mind, strange images appear, but she quickly dismisses them when Bunny distracts her. The gathering is interrupted by Shelley and her husband Frank, the CEO of Victory, who welcome the new residents. However, Margaret questions their presence, suggesting they don't belong, leading her husband to escort her away and create an uncomfortable atmosphere. Frank tries to ease the tension by emphasizing their mission to build a safe community. Concerned for Margaret, Alice finds her at home, where her husband is giving her medication. Margaret confides her distress over troubling dreams and feels she is being hidden, but her husband shuts the door to stop Alice from intervening. Back at the party, Alice finds Jack in Frank's room, where he flirts with her. The moment becomes awkward when Frank appears, watching them before leaving silently, and Alice decides not to mention it to Jack. The next day, while shopping, Alice's friends discuss Margaret's odd behavior since the incident, but Bunny reminds them that Margaret broke their only rule by taking her child into the desert, believing she had a vision. Upon discovering her, Margaret was found alone with her son's toy airplane while he was missing. She claims they took him as punishment. Their conversation is interrupted by a tremor, which they ignore, accustomed to such events. One woman questions rumors about men developing weapons, but Bunny angrily reminds her that wives must support their husbands without question. Later, Alice has strange dreams and decides to stay on the trolley instead of getting off at the mall to enjoy the desert scenery. Suddenly, a plane resembling Margaret's toy crashes in the desert, prompting Alice to investigate, but the driver refuses to let her go. Undeterred, she ventures into the desert, climbs a hill, and finds a mysterious dome. Calling for help yields no response, but as she touches the dome, unsettling images flood her mind, accompanied by Frank's voice. When she blinks, she finds herself back in bed, disoriented, and heads to the kitchen to find Jack cooking quietly. Alice was back home when Jack arrived, but she couldn't remember how. She mentioned a plane crash, but Jack assured her it didn't happen, or the town would be buzzing. Upset, Alice blamed her confusion on bad dreams, and Jack comforted her with jokes. The next day, while cleaning windows, the wall behind her shifted, pressing her against the glass. Terrified, she pushed back, but it was just a hallucination. When the phone rang, Margaret asked if Alice had seen the event, insisting they were being deceived and urging her to leave. Overwhelmed, Alice asserted her sanity and hung up. During ballet class, she was shocked to see her reflection turn into Margaret's, who then began to strike her head against the glass, causing Alice to scream. The other students were oblivious, and when she turned around, Margaret had vanished. Concerned, Alice rushed home to find Margaret on her roof. In tears, she pleaded with her to stop, but Margaret ignored her and took drastic action. Men in red pulled Alice away as she panicked. Later, when Alice tried to tell Jack, he dismissed her, saying Margaret's husband assured everyone she was fine after an accident while cleaning windows. Alice feels troubled by how others perceive her, sensing that she is seen as irrational. She demands clarity from Jack about his job and the company's secrets. Frustrated, Jack warns her that pursuing these questions could threaten their happy life together and urges her to drop the topic before leaving Alice uneasy. That night, while trying to distract herself with TV, she experiences a hallucination of drowning, reminiscent of a previous feeling of being trapped. She blinks and finds herself by the window, as if trying to escape. The next morning, while wrapping leftovers, Alice feels disoriented as her hands move on their own. Regaining composure, she acknowledges her declining mental state. Soon after, Jack arrives with Dr. Collins for a checkup. The doctor attributes Alice's condition to the stress of witnessing Margaret's fall. When Alice tries to recount the events, Collins suggests that grief can distort reality. He offers medication, but both Jack and Alice decline. Alice then notices classified files about Margaret in Collins' briefcase and asks about her situation. Collins explains that Margaret had severe outbursts and paranoia, which led to her husband's dismissal from Victory and her placement in a treatment facility. Alice pretends to return a briefcase to Collins, successfully stealing Margaret's files, which turn out to be completely redacted. Realizing they hold no value, Margaret decides to burn them while sipping whiskey to numb her guilt. Later, in the bath, she reflects on unsettling memories and tender moments until Jack arrives and suggests they consider having a baby, which Alice agrees to think about. At an elegant party hosted by Frank, Alice feels uneasy under his watchful eye. When a dancer enters, triggering her memories, she breaks down and asks Jack to take her home, but he ignores her as Frank announces Jack's promotion. The celebration overwhelms Alice, prompting her to flee to the bathroom, where she sees the couple again. Bunny appears to check on her, but interrupts Alice's attempt to explain her distress, reprimands important evening, prompting her to gather herself as a supportive wife. She feels compelled to return to their routine and move past recent events. A few days later, Jack hosts a dinner party attended by Frank and Shelley. While cooking, Frank tells Alice he admires her for challenging him, hoping she will continue to inspire him. During dinner, Alice takes the head of the table to maintain eye contact with Frank. She interrupts the usual small talk to question the guests about their pasts, suggesting they remember their stories instead of forgetting significant truths like what happened with Margaret. Jack tries to silence her, but Frank encourages her to continue, leading Alice to accuse him of maintaining a false reality. Frank remains calm, claiming Alice shares Margaret's delusions and even accuses her of being in his bedroom. Tension rises, and Shelley confronts Alice for causing a scene and disrespecting her husband before leaving. The other guests follow, and as Jack opens the door, Frank lingers to express his disappointment in Alice before departing as well. Alice approaches Jack, insisting their relationship is more important than their life in Victory, and they must escape before it harms them. After much pleading, Jack agrees to flee. As Alice gathers essentials, Jack unexpectedly apologizes, leaving her confused until men in red arrive to take her away, while Jack weeps at her cries for help. Alice is sent for electroshock therapy, where she begins to have visions of a contemporary life with Jack, who has lost his job. She reassures him she can take extra shifts at the hospital, but the strain affects her, leading to tension between them. Jack listens to a podcast encouraging men to find their true selves. Later, Alice wakes up in Victory, told by Collins that she has been fixed, and resumes her routine. Days later, Jack returns singing the same song, revealing he has joined the Victory Project and has a machine at home that connects to Alice, indicating her life in Victory is a simulation. All the wives share a similar situation, and like the other men, Jack only engages with it for a few hours each day, disconnecting when he arrives at the desert headquarters. The rest of the time, he cares for Alice's real body and works a low-paying job to fund the simulation. In Victory, Alice suffers from overwhelming images and confronts Jack, who defends his actions as a way to provide them a better life. Alice accuses him of selfishness and worries about the other wives and children, but Jack insists the children are not real. He then pleads for forgiveness, but Alice, frustrated by his deceit, strikes him with a glass, knocking him unconscious. Unbeknownst to her, dying in Victory means death in reality. As the real Jack dies, Frank receives a call about the incident. Bunny arrives, covering Jack's body and comforting Alice, who tries to explain her experience. Bunny reveals she chose the simulation to regain her children after their deaths and urges Alice to disconnect herself at headquarters, as Jack can no longer do it. Despite her apprehension, Alice agrees, noticing the neighbors emerging as the streetlights shatter, while the men remain focused on Jack. Bunny intervenes to help Alice escape in a car just before the men in red arrive to pursue her. A chase ensues through the streets, and while Alice exits the town safely, the situation worsens in the desert as the men in red ram her car. Dr. Collins tries to assist but ends up colliding with others when Alice evades capture. At home, Frank receives news of Collins' death, which Shelley overhears before stabbing Frank, declaring it's her turn. Meanwhile, Alice's car gets stuck on a sharp turn in the desert. She exits and runs, but the men in red pursue her up the hill. At the summit, Alice hallucinates Jack urging her to stay, but the men in red close in. As she presses against a glass wall, unsettling visions overwhelm her, and everything fades to black as she gasps for breath. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button. A few days later, Jack hosts a dinner party attended by Frank and Shelley. While cooking, Frank tells Alice he admires her for challenging him, hoping she will continue to inspire him. During dinner, Alice takes the head of the table to